I think we're going to go ahead and start with our program. My name is Kathy Jacobs. I run the Center for Climate Adaptation Science and Solutions in the Institute of the Environment. And I am very pleased to be able to co-host this event with Trevor Ledbetter, who is the head of the Sustainability Office at the University of Arizona. We are really excited about this event. It's essentially the kickoff event to a new program, the University Climate Change Coalition, that you'll be hearing much more about that we've joined. This is the initial event, and we'll be explaining quite a bit more about what it is and what we're up to in the very near future. Before I turn it over to Trevor, who is going to actually tell you what's going on, I wanted to thank a number of people. First of all, we'd like to thank President Robbins for his support for this whole effort. It's incredibly important to us, and it's really a game changer. So thank you so much. Thanks to the IE staff, in particular, Liz, Maggie, Amanda, who's in our center, for all the work that you do behind the scenes to make these things happen. Obviously, almost nothing happens without people like this doing it. And I just wanted to say what an amazing pleasure it is to work with Trevor, who is approximately 1/3 of my age and approximately 3 times as competent. Really, he's kind of an amazing guy. So you need to watch him because he's happening. Anyway, with that, no pressure, but go ahead and do it all right, okay?
Okay.
All right, thanks.
Thank you for those kind words, Kathy. I would also like to thank all of the speakers that came out this afternoon. Yeah, it's afternoon now. I would also like to thank Lauren White with the Office of Sustainability, who helped put this together and has been really supportive in everything that we've been doing in the office this year. So we'll just launch into things. A quick introduction before we get into what UC3 is. We have 4 liaisons. All of their contact information is up there. So Kathy is the research liaison for UC3. She's really in charge of communications, really having a good pulse on what's happening with research in the environmental and sustainability spaces here at the university. Myself, I'm the implementation liaison / operational liaison, really in charge of the sustainability side of things, keeping track of our carbon commitments, moving things forward from the perspective of the Office of Sustainability. Steve Moore, who is our SVP for Marketing and Communications, Chief Marketing and Communications Officer. He is our communications liaison, so really in charge of elevating and advancing all of the communications with regard to UC3, both internal to the university as well as beyond. And then John Dudas, who unfortunately was unable to join us this afternoon, Senior Vice President and Secretary for the university, is our executive liaison, really conduit from him to President Robbins with big stake items. So more on UC3. UC3 is the University Climate Change Coalition. It is a program of Second Nature, and for those of you who are unaware of what Second Nature is, Second Nature is a large organization focused on accelerating the transition towards a zero carbon economy, both within and through higher education. And so one of the ways that they're doing that is through the University Climate Change Coalition, which, as you can see on the screen, is 19 Tier 1 research institutions throughout Canada, the United States, and Mexico. And really the purpose is to leverage the research enterprises of these institutions to do exactly this, which is to accelerate the transition to a zero or low carbon future. And to do that within this network, to kind of build off of each other and make this transition happen more quickly and in a way that benefits everyone. A little bit on U of A's climate commitment. For those of you who are unaware, Second Nature also runs the President's Climate Leadership Network, of which President Robbins is on their advisory board. And I should also mention Jim Beiser is the chair within the board of Second Nature. So the University of Arizona signed on in 2015 to Second Nature's President Climate Change commitments. Within that, there are 3 different commitments universities and colleges across the United States can sign up to. Canada and Mexico as well. And that is the carbon commitment, which is a commitment to carbon neutrality as soon as possible by 2050 at the latest. The University of Arizona signed on to one that incorporates that, but also incorporates a resiliency component, working very closely with our local community to make that happen. So we signed on to the climate commitment, which includes both carbon and resiliency. In the U of A strategic plan, we signed up to carbon neutrality by 2040, and then scope 2 emissions, being neutral in scope 2 emissions by 2025. And so for those of you who are unaware, scope 1 emissions, when it comes to carbon emissions, are emissions from our university. So we have 2 cogenerational turbines on campus that produce 40% of our electricity. That is scope 1. Scope 2 emissions are indirect emissions that result from our purchasing of electricity, so what we get from TEP. And then scope 3 emissions are other indirect emissions that include things like travel to and from campus of everyone in this room, travel on university business, stuff like that. And so within our strategic plan, we committed to neutralizing our scope 2 emissions by 2025, and we are actually on track to hopefully do that by the end of 2020. Give you an idea of the other institutions involved with the University Climate Change Coalition. A few select ones: SUNY, the State University of New York, ASU is also a member, University of California system, and all the others up on the screen. So I will turn it over to President Robbins to say a few words. Yeah, I don't think you really need this.
You need a microphone.
Oh, haha. There you go.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for giving me a couple of minutes, Kathy and Trevor, to say a few words. Yeah, I have Greg Goldman to thank for introducing me to Trevor, and I agree. I'm buying futures on his stock, but he's delivering dividends right now. I mean, so we're incredibly lucky, Trevor, to have you and all of you who are in this room. UC3, wasn't aware of until Greg and Trevor really pushed me and said, this is an important thing for the university to do. I was happy to be part of this group. I'm happy that you even invited me to come here and be part of this group, because the work that everyone in this room is doing is vitally important, not only to what we're trying to do as a university, but obviously for the sake of the globe. And being part of this platform, I think every major panel that I went to, there was a U of A representative in Tempe, and that was really impressive. And it got me, number one, educated, but more importantly, inspired about this work. I'll have to say that my favorite person, there were many great people there, but this guy, Mustafa Santiago Ali, who spoke about that sustainability is really, there's a big link to social justice around that. I think we should figure out a way to get him to campus and get people really fired up about what we're doing here. He was particularly inspiring for me. I think we're going to have a chance for some questions. I just wanted to go beyond just what we're talking about today. And Jim and I were just sidebarring. I didn't think I was going to be able to make it to Vancouver in late July. But we figured out I think I can get there. And I mean, what a bonus to get to go to Vancouver in late July. But this really is important for us and for me, even though I'm not as educated as all of you. I'm trying to catch up. But just to be there with Crow and Michael Drake and President Napolitano and others signals that we're really part of this, and that we want to put a stake in the ground and fly our flag along with all those other flags. So I think that's really important. But broadly across the university, I think in the work that Trevor and Lisa Rolney and Bob Smith and others are doing with TEP to achieve this 100% reduction in scope 2 by 2025, that we
20.
could 2020 that you're actually going to get that done is phenomenal, because we were headed down another pathway that had us trading, offsets with other people, and it was getting very complicated. So Trevor thank you for doing that work. But just in terms of the whole strategic plan for the university, very, very clearly the environment has to be part of that. And we had a meeting with Raina and Andrew this morning to talk about strategic investment fund and investing into the plan that they brought forward. And I couldn't be more supportive of that effort, as well as what we're doing here. So not only am I philosophically, intellectually, emotionally, but now financially, I'm going to be committed to making sure that there are real monies that come forward to invest in these efforts. So I don't know what else you want me to say, other than I'll take questions if you want, or we'll pass it on and let others speak.
We do have a few minutes.
Okay.
So if there are a couple of questions from the audience, we'd be glad to take a couple, and then we'll move on.
And we will ask you to speak into the microphone, so please raise your hand if you have a question for President Robbins.
One of the things that we talked about this morning is the palpable passion amongst high school students across the country. And Lisa Ronley was just in, is Lisa here?
Lisa is not here.
Not here. But she was just at a conference in Vancouver, and there were high school students protesting in the streets, literally. So we talked about how this could be really focused on students, because IE's really been a lot about great research, and that's valuable. But I think long term, we have an opportunity to be able to market, and Steve is going to be helping us do this. But I help too. When I go out and talk to donors and talk to groups, I always try to work with how great we are on the environment. But to attract those students that are high school students that are passionate about saving the planet, and to say, this is a great option for them to come to the University of Arizona. And programs like this and our involvement nationally, we're constantly in recruiting and retention mode of students. And again, Pillar one to me is the most important thing, that we invest in the success of our students, and we want to attract great students. And I use the example of Katrina and Tulane. Unfortunately, they didn't realize they were going to get such a great mascot, or whatever the term is, but their mascot for Tulane University is the Green Wave. And there is a green wave of students, particularly I know, at least from my kids, their friends, who are flocking to Tulane just because of the whole idea of rebuilding New Orleans, about the social justice part of that, how it ties to the environment. We need to come together and present an option to prospective students and recruit them here going forward. So I forgot to mention that in my remarks.
That's great.
Yep.
Questions from anyone? Must be something lurking out there.
They don't want
I see a hesitation.
No.
Yeah, so thank you, President Robbins. This is, I guess, a question for everyone involved. I'm Andrew Uden, Associate Professor of Astronomy, so I'm not involved in any of these initiatives, but just want to basically ask how and encourage that you can get, members of departments who aren't involved in this initiative, but, obviously care about making the campus and everything more climate neutral, and how people who aren't directly involved can be roped into this process. I appreciate how this started by making this an open invitation, and that's why I'm here. So thanks again.
My way would be is that I'm constantly talking about this, but I'm an N of one, and I think there could be force multipliers and amplification through better marketing, better website, having these events though, and having this discussion, because you'll go back and say, hey, if you really care about the planet, even though you're not, you may be in, medicine or mathematics or whatever, come, because this group is really engaged and we're doing something substantial.
We will explicitly be asking you to help us create a network of networks across the campus to bring people into this space. Obviously, the people who are here in the room today represent a very small proportion of the campus, although it's an incredibly broad array of people when you look at the departments and so forth, which we're thrilled about. But we're literally at the beginning of what we hope will be building quite a bit of momentum over time. And there will be hopefully a number of projects that are explicitly UC3 projects where the university is going to partner with the community. And that's what we'll be hearing some ideas about from our popcorn presenters shortly. But they're really, the sky is the limit. This is our program collectively. This is not something that is being dictated from above. So we are completely open to ideas. That's why we've given you a note card to write ideas on. You can write questions or ideas or comments or anything. You can avoid the epithets or expletives and so forth. But we are completely open and really looking for ideas. That's what this whole session is about. And we're so thrilled to hear about both the emotional and the financial commitment to this, because honestly, we think this can be part of building the Institute of the Environment future and the environment across the campus. How are we going to build the students who need to solve these problems that are all highly integrated, interdisciplinary problems that require lots of leadership skills? So I think we need to all recognize how complex these problems are and how much we need to use each other's expertise to do it.
Yeah, I just on that point, and that's one thing we had in our discussion this morning. If there's this young person in Palo Alto or Berkeley who could go to the Stanford and study at the Woods Institute of the Environment, or go to Berkeley or whatever, why would they come here? And if they came here, and not necessarily for Cal, but and I won't use my Sean Miller comment that I made this morning, but once we get them here, how are we going to take care of them? Because I think they come to study water, or they come to study sustainability, or they come to study whatever they're going to study. But I'm concerned they get lost. But I'm confident that from what I heard this morning, we've got a plan to really be able to go out and recruit those students and say, because I don't think it's just like the comments that I've been getting back from this quote, College of Data Network and Computer Science. We went through that process just like we went through, because my solution was, well, we'll just create a College of the Environment. And because that brings everybody together, that gets tuition revenue and all this stuff, we're not going to do that. I'm teachable. And it's just like we're not going to have a College of Data and Network Science, because I listened. But I do worry about the students getting lost. And so that's something I hope that we're going to address together.
Thanks for joining us, and I hope you can stick around for the popcorn. Excellent. It's caramelized. Anyway, so Steve's going to give us a little overview of how this connects to the strategic plan.
Okay. Sorry, Kat. Okay, so what I hope to do with this, I'm going to spend about 5-10 minutes on this, be very quick. But what I want to do is focus on inclusion, not exclusion. And I know that's important probably to everybody in this room. But when you look at the strategic plan, I think you probably all by now have seen the 5 pillars. And you've seen what the 5 pillars stand for. And if you hadn't, they're up on the screen in front of you right now. And one of the things that we've gone through in the strategic plan discussions is, am I in the plan? Am I not in the plan? Where do I see myself in the plan? I don't see myself in the plan. And depending on the prism through which you look, you may be able to answer that either way, right? And what I'm here today to ask you to do is look at it through the prism of inclusion, that you are in it, that you can be in it. In fact, some of you today are probably in initiatives or initiative owners even of things within the plan. And it speaks some to the breadth of the plan, but it also speaks to the breadth of the environment and what the environment touches. So if we could, let's just look at Pillar 1. And we've just highlighted some things within Pillar 1 up there. And if you really push yourself and you go down and you look at all these things on Pillar 1 that are put up here, you could see that there are pieces of this where the environment could fit in. And let me give you one example. I'm just throwing things out there from a marketing standpoint, right? If you look up there, you see re-envision Gen Ed. Well, re-envision Gen Ed could absolutely include the environment. I mean, there is no question about that. And one of the things I struggle with, I will tell you as a marketer, we've gone through a big effort with enrollment marketing in trying to make our website easier for students to navigate, because we are so interdisciplinary here that it's hard to understand our majors. We don't have majors in colleges like other people do necessarily. So they can't, if they say, okay, I want to major in English, I'm going to go look in humanities, or I'm going to major, Portuguese, I'm going to go look in social and behavioral science. It's confusing, right? So we've had to do workarounds and all that. Well, I think one of the real opportunities, and Bobby mentioned it, in the environment is, how do we create magnets there? How do we create things where people know where to go, where they know it's important? In other words, if I'm interested in interdisciplinary studies, and by the way, most people are, I mean, that's one of our impact points. When we did all the purpose and value work, and you looked at the 5 impact areas for the university, interdisciplinary studies is one of them. There's no question about it. People view that as a strength. But guess what another one was? Climate change. Climate change is one of the top 5. I mean, no question about it. And in this room, when we talk about climate change, you'd probably get, because there's such a level of expertise, you get a lot of different people saying a lot of different things about it, right? What does that mean? Or that's too narrow, or you have to define it differently, you have to talk about it differently. But I would tell you, as a marketer, we have to be a little more open-minded about how we talk about these things, and what appeals to people, and how they look at the world, and how they look at life. And hopefully in the popcorn talks today and the discussions afterwards, those will be some of the things that come up, because I think that's really important. It's important how students look at us, and what do they see when they look at us. If you are bright enough and have access, you can get inside and understand it, but we can't depend on that. But within the pillar, back to where I started, re-envision Gen Ed, it certainly has a place in it. There you see. In Pillar 2, space technologies, national security, no question it could fit in here. We could fit it in several places. And the fact is that if you go to built environment, you say, well, wait a minute, is built environment actually climate change, which is an impact area? Well, maybe not, but does it have something to do with it? Absolutely it does. Does it have any relevance? Yes, it does. Do these things fit together? The way I look at life, I mean, a lot of what you do in marketing really is concentric circles. And what I mean by that is you're always looking at how do you connect people, right? And the connectivity is how much do the circles interact? And the more connectivity there is, the more opportunity you have to talk to somebody about something on a central level. But in areas like this, if we broaden it, if we are a little more open-minded about how we look at it, we can find ways to connect and ways to interest people. And I think here's another 2 examples of how within the plan it does fit, and it is there. Pillar 3, cross-cultural or cross-border collaborations. Absolutely. I mean, where do we live? What's our environment like in the area we live in? What do we do about that? How do we manage that? Certainly, if you looked at that, you might jump and say, okay, it's water. It's about water, right? Well, yeah, water's a piece of it, but what else is in it? And what else could be in it? And the teams that are working on that are having those kind of discussions. So absolutely, it's in the plan. Pillar 4, global projects, absolutely. I mean, you heard about the students in Vancouver, but that's happening all over the world. And it happens in the countries where we are out there right now with microcampuses. And it'll happen more and more. And the fact that we can be a leader in this area, and again, we have some kind of a magnet here, what we can attract people to and say, here's where you go, here's why you come here, then we have a real advantage. Pillar 5. Sustainability, living our core values. I mentioned in our core values what we've come up with is how we make a difference in the world. What makes us different? Well, certainly adding value in the areas of climate change can make a huge difference. It makes a huge difference in the world, in the history of the world, and also makes a huge difference in the people we can attract to this university and the kids that want to come in here and make a difference. We actually had a discussion about this morning about how do we make Arizona better? Well, it's not making Arizona better, it's making the world better. And we have that kind of ability here at the University of Arizona. And it just so happens we live in a climate that reminds us of that every day. And that's a great reminder. And it's a great place to be to do something like that. Sustainability, I mean, we talked about what Trevor's done and what Trevor's efforts are. And Trevor and I have talked a lot about compost cats in the last 2 months and about how we do that as a club and how does that club become more important. And it's funny on things like that, you know, if when we welcome new students to campus, if there was a way for them to understand that Compost Cats was a part of the University of Arizona and it needs help and we need more students involved in it, do you think we'd get more involved in it? I think we will this year, absolutely, by focusing on it, because they want to make a difference, they want to be helpful, and they want to be a part of the solution. So when we go into the popcorn talks, what I would ask you to do is have these things in the back of your mind and help us. As this progresses, we're going to have a big role in how do we market this? How do we talk to people about this? How do we stress our differences? How do we make a difference here at the University of Arizona? And I got to tell you, when you go out like we did with Purpose and Values and you talk to over 500 people, and these are alumni, these are donors, these are admitted students, their parents, people on campus, off campus, etc. And climate change comes up as number 3 in the top 5 impact areas for the University of Arizona. That tells you something. That's not latent, that's out there. And so we have to do something about it. So I'm very excited about being involved in it. I've loved working with Trevor and the team, and I think we have a real opportunity here. And these don't come along every day, and not every college and every university can say they have something that's different and unique. So thanks for all you're doing. Thanks for listening to me blabber on about the strategic plan a little bit more. And I appreciate the time and look forward to working with you. Trevor?
It's me. It's me.
Yes.
Something you did include was the campus master plan.
Right.
I mean, it seems to me that people who care about sustainability are going to have a seat on the committee that addresses this plan.
Is that, I'm not certain they don't. Are you certain they don't?
I'm not.
Okay, all right, okay, good
We have the
point.
right person in the room to answer that
Good.
question.
So Peter Dorline with Planning, Design, and Construction, and we're helping oversee the campus master plan, and certainly there are focus groups as part of the master plan, and one of them definitely includes sustainability.
Great point.
Thank you, Peter.
Any other quick things for Steve before we move into popcorn?
Okay,
All right,
Oh,
thanks.
there's one,
Oh,
sorry.
yes, when?
How the university is going to be more involved with issues like work my mind and I have
Sure.
looking at a global perspective, but the leadership happening right here.
Sure. That's actually a great transition. Thank you very much. So really the point of today's conversation is about how do we generate projects and community between the university and the place that we live. It's actually part of the UC3 framework is that the university is supposed to work with the community on developing solutions. And so what we are doing here today, first of all, we have a set of 9 people who either volunteered or were voluntold that they needed to step up and do a little dog and pony show. The whole idea of that is just to get creative juices flowing. And what we want from you is your reaction to those ideas, other ideas, anything you've seen other places in the country that you think might be useful models. So it's really sort of a wide open space for having a conversation for what can we do with and for our community as a result of what we put together here at the university. So how can we help the community work on solutions to these issues? And it can be Rosemont Mine, or it can be any number of other issues. There's plenty of issues out there. So I think we will go into a transition now. We are basically on an arc now where we are trying to identify a whole series of ideas. We'll come up with some criteria later on for how we evaluate the ideas for things that we really think could make a difference in our world at multiple scales. We are going to share those ideas in the fall with a group of 60 community leaders, get their impressions and their ideas, and then bring back several of the sort of top concepts to the community and ask the students for input as well as faculty and staff before we sort of launch into something which is as yet unknown. But we really think that this upfront process is critically important because there needs to be ownership across the whole, with all of us, students, faculty, staff, etc. So that's what we're really trying to build towards, is ownership of these ideas. We've asked these very nice people to stand up and give a little performance, but it's literally just some ideas. And so don't take anything from this that there's any commitment behind any of them yet, although a couple are sort of on a trajectory towards outcomes already. Several of them are not yet started at all. So I'm going to start off, and I think Trevor is going to, you're doing, oh, okay, Greg, you're next, okay. So our first popcorn speaker is Greg Barron-Gafford, and he is going to stand up and be timed, and he's gonna be really funny, and or he's just gonna be really accurate. Anyway, thank you, Greg, for going first and for being willing to do this.
Great, well, thank you for the invitation. Time started, popcorn served. So yes, thanks. I want to tell you quickly about this place-based, community-based collaborative project we're talking about. And I'm going to start by introducing this character, the sun. This thing that we hide from in the summer just to survive, this thing that gives us sunburn, is actually one of our most valuable resources. Having this abundance of sunlight allows us to grow so much food when other people can't around the country because they have a different kind of climate than we do. And this abundance of sunlight also allows us to be a hotspot for renewable energy production, this very valuable thing that we are increasingly desiring as a nation. But because of increasing pressures, because of population growth, urban growth, land use, you often see this conflict, especially when it comes time to look for getting permitting or allocating resources, where it's food production versus energy production. And once more, on top of that, neither of these food systems or energy systems are sustainable right now. We're able to produce the food that we do because of an over-reliance on irrigation waters. And if you've been paying attention to the news, you know these water resources are drying up, or we're going to have to start paying for what these actually should cost. And also in terms of renewable energy production, this is fading to pink a little bit. Did you know that solar panels are optimized to function around 77 degrees Fahrenheit? So anytime it's sunny and more than 78 degrees, your panels are underperforming because they're overheating. Isn't that bonkers? So because of changing climate, neither of these systems are sustainable. And so we're saying, why don't you think outside the box a little bit? Why don't you co-locate these two food and energy systems for a more sustainable future? And there's a lot of wins that come from this in terms of the food, energy, and water production. And this truly is an interdisciplinary project because I'm a geographer and a plant ecologist. What am I doing working under solar panels? So this involves engineers. This involves social scientists who help us understand what are some of the barriers to greater adoption. Well, we've seen wins in terms of food production. Being under the shade of solar panels actually allows these plants to perform better in terms of being less drought and temperature stressed. Just think about if you spilled your water bottle out in the sun versus the shade. The shade from these solar panels reduces the evaporation of that water. So we've actually been able to cut back our irrigation by half and maintain production. And finally, transpiration from plants, this natural process of water loss, it's kind of like the swamp cooler at home. And that swamp cooler from the solar panels, from the plants, is actually cooling down the solar panels. And remember, they overheat, they perform less well. You cool them down, they're going to perform better. So we're seeing this win in all three of these dimensions. And extending this into the community, we're also working within the local schools. And we've been doing this for the past few years. Here we are integrating STEM science into Monzo Elementary and some associated middle and high schools. So I look forward to hearing your thoughts after this. Thanks.
Great. Thanks, Greg. We're going to actually hold questions until the end. And so we'll have more than an hour of time to get feedback from people at the end. So our next speaker is Lad Keith.
Yeah, can we forward the slide? Cool. Other way.
Oops, that's me.
That's okay. I'll get started.
What happened to him?
Yep.
Is he gone?
That's all right. Don't worry about it.
They're just swaps. Go.
Oh, past me?
Yeah, past you.
That's not him.
Keep going.
There you
There
go.
you go. All right. So Lad Keith, I am a planning faculty member at CAPLA, and I lead our Sustainable Built Environments program. And so Kathy invited me to talk a little bit about student engagement, something that I've kind of been passionate about and been working on at my 15 years here at the University of Arizona. And one thing I've noticed over those 15 years is more students over that time are asking specifically for climate change, climate action, climate adaptation related engagement opportunities. So it's something that students are coming into the university looking for, like President Robbins had mentioned. And I think we have a lot of really great activities going on in specific areas, but kind of reflecting what President Robbins was saying, it's really hard for students to know where those activities are. And so I think we can do a much better job kind of articulating those stories and letting students that are really passionate and interested in this area know what opportunities are available to them. So again, there's a lot of action already taking place. We have a lot of strength in climate change, and kind of the audience in this room is indicative of that. What I wanted to talk about is just we've done a lot of work on student engagement. We had the 100% engagement program. We've changed the transcripts and U-Access. So there's a lot of that infrastructure kind of in place. But again, it's still really hard for students to actually find opportunities to engage in. We don't really have a great web portal for it still. For student recruitment, since I lead the Sustainable Built Environments program, all of those students that come into that program are looking for opportunities to kind of save the world and to make the world a better place, right? When they come to the University of Arizona, it's really hard for them to see that we have CCAS, that we have CLEMAS, that we have the Southwest CASC, that we have faculty members that have amazing research projects in all of those areas. So I think we can do a much better job articulating those stories. And again, recruitment is a huge thing, like President Robbins was saying, because students are looking for those opportunities. We can obviously benefit the community better. So I heard kind of the, what are you doing about I-10? Well, CAPLA had an I-10 project where we had a studio on that, but does the rest of the University of Arizona know about those outcomes that we did? We have students that are interested in working on things like the Rosemont Mine. So I think we can benefit the community and kind of fulfill our land grant mission with that. And then another thing that I'm personally interested in is we obviously have a lot of different degree programs here at the U of A. So I'm thinking of our accredited programs at CAPLA, architecture, planning, and landscape architecture. We need accredited landscape architects and planners and architects, civil engineers, public health people going out into the world, right? And so there's a lot of accreditation requirements for those programs, but we also have a lot of opportunities to give them engagement opportunities on climate change so that the planners and public health officials going out understand about the projections and impacts coming from climate change. So I think that's an opportunity area too. Just really quickly, two of the pictures that I have up here. One is on the left-hand side. I have a project going right now with a CLEMAS funded project with Heidi Brown in public health, and the students are, just a second, the students are collecting mosquitoes across Tucson and looking at green infrastructure. And so that's an engagement project that we're doing. And now Andrea and Adriana have similar projects like that looking at green infrastructure. And then obviously there's a lot of opportunities to kind of present the research that students are doing too. So again, I think President Robbins was right on the head. We are doing a lot here. We just need to better articulate it, tell those stories, and really let students know that what we're doing. So thank you.
Great, thanks. So Andrea Gerlach is next. And I think just following up on what Ladd was saying, we can easily imagine going from what he just said to building a much stronger program for how do we get students engaged in community activities. Take it away.
Thanks. It's an honor to be here to talk about an opportunity for U of A to promote public-private partnerships for climate risk management. U of A is well positioned. We have the expertise to help lead the private sector in climate risk management to help adapt to a changing climate. There are some great benefits or advantages to doing this work. There are three just right here on the right-hand side. Helping the private sector do and understand and do risk management around climate helps build community resilience. It also, and preparedness within the community. It also expands educational opportunities here at the university. It helps us recruit those high school students. It helps us retain the undergrads and the graduate students when they're here. And it gives our students real world experience once they're here. And also it has great potential to generate income for the university. The good news is we've already been doing some of this work here at the University of Arizona, partnering with the private sector to do climate risk management work. A number of years ago, RDI here on campus funded a pilot effort for the university to engage with a private partner to do this work. We partnered with TEP, our local utility. This program was housed in IE, and we pulled together a team of faculty, researchers, and students from Eller to atmospheric sciences to SNRE, to the School of Natural Resources, to the School of Geography and Development. We worked with the utility for 2 years. This image is a little bit of our process. You can kind of see it was a lot of back and forths. It was an iterative learning, collaborative process. In the end, we produced a qualitative risk assessment for TEP looking at impacts and risks associated with fire, air quality, water, and heat. They were pleased with our process and our outcome. This past spring, they came back and offered to hire us to help them set a carbon reduction goal. We just signed the contract with them earlier this week, so the next 9 months we'll engage in this process with TEP. So we have more than recouped our initial investment working with the utility. There is a lot of promise here. There are a lot more besides engaging with other utilities across the state, but there are a lot of other industries as well, from hospitals to developers, among others. What we lack, however, is the institutional infrastructure to really do this work in a strategic way. We lack the single entry point at the university to engage with the private sector. We lack the coordination mechanism on campus to really more broadly make this more open and transparent and engage all the different types of people who may have the expertise. And most importantly, we lack the communication and public relations mechanism to really promote what we're doing and then to recruit new partners for this effort. This is really a great time to move forward, to build from our successes. We've seen already from our engagement with TEP how we can support community resilience, expand educational opportunities, and certainly get return on investment. This work with the private sector is at the heart of our strategic goals. It's at the heart of the mission and the vision of the university, and it certainly aligns well with UC3.
Great. So I get to be the next popcorner. I think Andrea's presentation does a great job of showing what the potential is to build from where we are today to a much more impactful outcomes. And that's really what we're here to talk about. Now you can start my timer. I'm here to talk to you about water sustainability. This is an issue that is near and dear to my heart because I've been working as a water manager for something like 25 years before I came to the university. Arizona has one of the premier groundwater management systems in the world. We're the envy of the world for the way we manage our groundwater. And yet I don't think anyone in this room thinks that we have a fully sustainable water supply, even in the context of the current definition. The real question is, who gets to define what water sustainability is, and water sustainability for whom? And right now, I have to say that it's water sustainability for the cities, and primarily, for agriculture to some degree, for the mines for sure. We have a water management system that is set up to essentially reinforce the kind of water use that we have had in the past. And we haven't got a water supply or a water management system that in any way respects the natural environment. How is that sustainability? We also have a water management system that is dependent on drying up the Colorado River before it actually reaches the Gulf of Mexico or the Gulf of California. How is it that it's called sustainability when we're actually drying up a major water system? I mean, we're not alone. There's 40 million people who are helping us with that. But the reality is we don't have a fully sustainable water supply. It is not completely renewable. So what is it that we can do as a university system working in partnership with people across the state of Arizona to actually change this, to really look at this in terms of long-term sustainability and thinking about it in terms of economic sustainability, social equity and sustainability, and environmental outcomes. So we're looking at it much more broadly than the way the current water management system works. Well, clearly we already have a lot of ideas that have been discussed on this campus. They include things like dry year options, where we pay farmers not to grow their crops in years when we are in a drought condition. How about if we combine that with Greg's sustainable agriculture / solar panels / organic farming and local food systems, so that we really start integrating a lot of these solutions? What if we thought about it in terms of water rights for the environment? There are no water rights for the environment in this state. What can we do to change that? Could we think of managing the Colorado River as a sustainable system, as opposed to as a system that is essentially just used as pumps and pipes? So I would suggest that we have an opportunity to work with the water resources entities at all 3 universities across the state, build a coalition with a group of other interested parties, and start exploring these new definitions of sustainability and how they could be implemented. And after we do that, we'll do something even more magical. Thank you very much. So our next presenter is Carrie Schwartz.
Hi, I'm Carrie Schwartz. I'm an associate specialist with Arizona Cooperative Extension. I'm also part of the newly named Environmental Science Department at the College of Agriculture and Life Science. And I work over at the Water Resources Research Center. I'm the director of the Arizona Project WET program. And I'm here to tell you about the Recharge the Rain program that we partner with the Watershed Management Group in town on. Kids say that their school grounds are ugly in Tucson. And they're right. Have you been to any middle school or high school in Sunnyside School District or Tucson School District? Ugly, okay? Big problem. So what we call that in the context of the new Arizona science standards is a teachable moment, or what we call a anchor phenomena. So the idea is that this observation will drive students' interest, study, innovative ideas, and action. Students at Santa Cruz Catholic School at 22nd Street and 6th Avenue had an immediate reaction when their teacher asked, "Where is it hot on your school grounds?" They pointed to their shoes, some grabbed their shoes, and they said, "The blacktop, it goes through my tennis shoes." Another teachable moment, because they walk across that blacktop every day. And of course, climate predictions say that we're only going to get hotter. So, in the Recharge the Rain project, we're working with teachers and students to not only beautify their schoolyard area, but to significantly cool it by sinking the rain, growing the trees, producing the shade, and the evapotranspiration. 1,300 students and their respective teachers have applied the engineering design process to solve a problem through the installation of rain gardens at 6 different schools so far. 3 of them are south of downtown, where we know from PAG's green infrastructure prioritization tool that we have below average tree canopy. Monitoring based on measurable criteria provides the proof and the pudding for our project. Following on where students have left off, our summer intern, Grace McGuire, will be monitoring our sites before and after monsoon rains. And thanks to a partnership with Lad Keith, Nicole Eros Elardo, and Kirk Diamond, we'll be including a new protocol for measuring heat at these sites as well. So, how can we go into the hottest neighborhoods and work with the residents to make the changes that they want? School rain gardens installed by kids from those neighborhoods provide a starting point. It's a success that we can build on. Let us know if you want to work with us. The Recharge the Rain team, along with our NOAA partners, are thinking globally and making it happen locally. Thanks a lot.
Hello, everybody. My name is Colin Waite. I'm the director of the Cooper Center for Environmental Learning, which is an outreach project of the College of Education here on campus. For those of you who've grown up in Tucson or who have kids who've grown up in Tucson, you probably know us better as Camp Cooper. But for the last 10 years, it's been part of our university. And every program that we do focuses on 3 things. It focuses on building positive emotional connections with nature for each of our learners, basic ecological understandings, and this inspiration to live more lightly on our planet. And for the last 55 years, the focus really was on younger kids, which is obviously incredibly important for us as a community because we need young people to be the next generation of environmentally responsible citizens in our community. But what we're finding is that as these generations grow up with fewer and fewer opportunities to be connected to the environment, more and more distractions, it's becoming more important that we have that natural world connection as a component of what we do. And for the last 3 years, we have also been working here on campus, thanks to a grant from the Green Fund Committee, to engage university students in these ideas as well. And I think that it's exactly right that President Robbins would say that our sustainability elements are going to attract students. But there's also a very large majority of students on campus that really don't think sustainably for themselves. And what we've really worked hard to do the last 3 years is to find those students, and they need the same types of experiences that young kids do. They need to get out and get in touch with nature as well. And we're not that far here at campus from these amazing natural resources. It's a lot of the reason why we live here and work here. And so we need to have more opportunities for university students to access those natural world communities so that they're inspired to think more sustainably on our campus. And it's also really important to realize that our community on campus needs to be out in our Southern Arizona community as well. Science education has never been more at risk in our public schools than it is right now. And we need to be an active advocate for science education and environmental learning at the public school level if we want to have university students who are coming to our campus with the skills and the interest and the passion to take action on these really important issues. Thank you.
Thanks. Are you turned on?
All right. So the Tucson 2030 district, for those of you who've not heard about it, the The Tucson Emerging 2030 District was established in 2017. In 2018, December of this last year, the University of Arizona, Pima County, and the city of Tucson all signed on to become members, moving the Tucson 2030 District from emerging to established. Within the Tucson 2030 District, it's really a network of institutions, or it's a network of other districts throughout Canada and the United States, working towards these three primary goals you see in the bottom right-hand corner, which is reducing building energy use, reducing water consumption, and reducing transportation greenhouse gas emissions, all by 50% by 2030. From an energy perspective, we're looking at the commercial, I always forget the acronym, but the commercial, Mike?
Commercial Building Energy Conservation Survey.
Thank you. So working off of the 2003 CBEX database towards that. So we're already X number of years from 2003, so we're not trying to achieve these goals within the next 11 years. We've already done a good amount of work through our facilities management departments and planning, design, and construction departments here on campus. The Tucson 2030 District is really geared towards how do we do this at a large level, bringing together private entities, public entities, nonprofits, university, all of these into one district to kind of make these things move. Within that, the Tucson 2030 District has a lot of things starting to move. It's recently expanded into the Menlo Park area. And it's really focused on how do we make these things happen and how do we connect on all the different levels from residential to commercial to the university. There are a lot of different ways in which the university can start to connect with the Tucson 2030 District. Again, we are already members and we have committed the full almost 12 million square feet that the university brings to the table. Out of the 25 million square feet committed, that's almost half. It's really important for us to address these things. As Steve kind of mentioned earlier, the built environment, while you wouldn't necessarily connect it to these sorts of things, the built environment is one of the largest it's one of the largest impacts on our greenhouse gas emissions and everything that we look at when we talk about climate change. And it has a very large impact on what we think of when we think of sustainability. There are many different ways we can start getting involved from the university perspective, from student engagement to research, and it's really just about building those things out, getting people involved. There are 5 different committees already started within the Tucson 2030 District. Those are performance, which is really about building benchmarking and how to best do that. Education, how to get the private entities involved, residential, communication, and development. So I'll leave it there and move on to our next one.
Our next speaker is Jim Beiser.
Thrive, to flourish, to prosper, to succeed. Thrive is also a community partnership between the University of Arizona and Mrs. Green's World, aimed at equipping local businesses with the knowledge, skills, and expertise to thrive in our future world, our future economy, and our future climate. It's about showing Tucson how to do well while doing good. For those of you who don't know her, Gina Murphy-Darling, also known as Mrs. Green, is somewhat of a local celebrity who hosts a radio show and blog and produces weekly podcasts completely dedicated to sustainability and the climate crisis. She has a reach of hundreds of thousands of individuals in Tucson and around the world every month. A little over 12 years ago, Gina traveled to the Amazon rainforest to see a place of the world that she hadn't experienced. She didn't know that that journey would completely turn her life upside down, but it did. Since that trip, she and her small team have been passionately and relentlessly delivering the message that our planet is in trouble, and that through our consumption behaviors, we are steadily making it uninhabitable to humans and other living things. In her view, if we are to move from the unsustainable trajectory, we must cause real, lasting behavioral change in individuals, corporations, and organizations across our city and our region. Her work involves the creation of green teams that include both training and action. This has resulted in sustainable practices and stronger, more resilient culture in the businesses she's worked with. Whether it's stopping the use of single-use plastic, like bottles or straws, or considering carbon footprint when we were ordering out for lunch. It's the dozens of the little things that we must all do together to lessen our impact on planet Earth. Thrive Training is the embodiment and expansion of Mrs. Green's ethos. Together, the U of A and Mrs. Green's World will educate businesses and their employees about the importance of sustainability and climate adaptation, creating a sustainable world, a stronger community, and a better bottom line. Through co-designing training modules, leadership and employees of local businesses will attain environmental literacy as it relates to climate change and sustainable living, understand how their personal lifestyle choices and business operation practices directly impact the sustainability of the planet, understand the importance of establishing sustainable networks created from community connections and partnerships, understand the intersection of sustainability and equity in society, beginning with the recognition of the value of creating sustainable work environments. And they will become equipped to implement sustainable solutions throughout the entirety of their businesses at the same time as they increase their profitability. So by combining the U of A's world-class expertise in sustainability and climate adaptation with Mrs. Green's relationships and experiences with local businesses, together we can ensure that Tucson can thrive into the future. And who knows, perhaps we can serve as an example for other communities around the region and around the world. Thank you.
For our final popcorn talker is Ellen McMahon, and then we'll go to all of you and get your ideas.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be here. So from prehistoric cave paintings to contemporary films, it's through art that we generate the stories and metaphors we use to make sense of our experience and understand our place in the world. My pitch is for a new university community creative collab, which builds on the successes of the Art Environment Humanities Network, which was initiated by Diana Liverman and has been supported by the IE over the last several years. This creative collab would be a portal where scientists, writers, community members, and organizations can find dancers, filmmakers, musicians, designers, and visual artists to work with on imaginative projects that increase engagement and support for climate change, resilience, and social justice. The Creative Collab would provide space, resources, networking, and community. It would have an advisory board, affiliated faculty, and community and student fellows. It would work with partners across campus to host lectures, symposia, workshops, and a vibrant artist in residence program. So 3 quick examples of the kinds of projects this lab would support. Groundwater, the art, design, and science of a dry river, began as a faculty research project led by an artist, an architect, a creative writer, became a partnership with scientists, scholars, and a community art group, an event in the Rito riverbed that attracted over 5,000 people, and a limited edition book of essays and artworks by 29 contributors, students, graduate students, faculty, and scholars from the community. And it is now in 45 permanent public collections around the world, talking about Tucson water and regional management. Hemispherical photographs used as data by UA scientist Dave Brashears and his team studying global forest die-off were repurposed into a 10-foot photo mural for the tree ring building, showing forest decline in the language of tree rings, and a video for an installation made all of tree products in which people could relax and smell the sound to the smells and sounds of the forest while watching it disappear. These works led to a broader impacts component on 2 NSF grant proposals and an NEA proposal. They've brought attention to UA climate-related research to expanded audiences in museums and galleries, and have been installed in both art and science conferences in the US and in Mexico. And lastly, last row, a university community partnership that raises awareness about a project that's bringing solar energy to low-income households through a community trust framework. My students and I, with a nonprofit called Solar Commons, are designing and producing a game which will be sent home with every 5th grader in the participating participating neighborhood to play and learn with their families and friends about sustainable ways to live through commoning our resources. Through the exchange and combination of ideas between arts and the environmental sciences, we can create experiences and stories that will enable us to address the challenges of today so we can live vibrant, hope-filled lives in the future.
Great. Well, I think this has been a pretty amazing set of ideas. Thank you very much, President Robbins, for us to start with. And I just want to emphasize that all of these are about building something more from where we are today. So this is not just, here's what we're doing. We're talking about how can we take these ideas and with this additional investment that we may have available to us from the community and the university, make it into something that's much more impactful. So now we're open to questions from you for any of the presenters who brought some ideas to the table. And then we'd also like to hear any ideas you might have to share. And I see that Don has his hand up, and a microphone will be there very shortly.
Thank you. I've been thinking a lot about the education mission side of this, and I think this is perhaps a pillar 1, pillar 2 crossover, but I'm thinking largely in relation to the world that my kids will live in. So I'd like to state this as a proposition as follows. Every student graduating from the University of Arizona should have basic competencies in understanding the causes, scope, and solutions of global change. The rationale is that this is the world that all of our students will live in for the rest of their lives, regardless of their profession as citizens. So I stated this proposition because I think we've been too narrow in our educational mission. We've been talking about attracting students with an interest in an environmental career, and that's very good, and that's clearly central, but it's also clearly not enough. We graduate thousands of citizens every year, and I believe that environmental competency, telling fact from fiction, should be a core competency for any graduate of this university.
We'd like to have you email that to us. We are taking real-time notes, but I bet we missed a few points. That's a great comment. And by the way, thank you to the popcorn presenters. That was a lot of work and a lot of great ideas. So maybe one more round of applause for you. Yeah, we really appreciate it. So Diana, you're up.
Just to follow up on Don's comment and also Steve's comment about reforming general education, I think it's important to recognize that we actually probably have 6 outstanding freshman courses that teach about climate change and sustainability, so that we shouldn't reinvent the wheel. What we might look for is, in the same way we used to have a sort of a diversity emphasis that all students should do that, is allow people to propose their courses to be what Don is asking it to do. But the main comment I want to make, that was a wonderful set of presentations, and it made me really proud to be at U of A and that we're doing UC3. But it was very much focused on Arizona, and I don't want us to forget that University of Arizona is actually world-class, and many of our students who come here are not from Arizona, so they will want to learn about China or California or whatever. And also to acknowledge that many of the people who presented have done work that's of national policy significance. You're a good example, Kathy, in terms of your role in the US National Climate Assessment. And we have scientists, whether it's Dave Brashears or Joe Allen Russell or Zhubin Zhen, who are doing work that is internationally important and attracts millions in research dollars. And perhaps you chose to have an Arizona focus, but I do think in terms of marketing and attracting students that we should also play up the international research stature, because whilst many faculty can devote their time to outreach, that's not what they mostly get credit for. They have to be able to publish in world-class publications to get promoted, and our graduate students have to do internationally significant work to get jobs. So I just wanted to raise that perhaps a future UC3 forum could also look a little bit more at that side of the excellence at U of A?
We absolutely could, but the assignment from UC3 is actually to work with our communities on sustainable outcomes. So absolutely, that can be part of the broader implementation of of our whole strategic plan, and the broadening of IE, and sort of rebuilding the university in the image of what we're talking about.
So I misunderstand UC3 because I thought it was working with communities everywhere in the world and not just where your university was.
Actually, it's in your place.
Okay.
But great points. Yes.
Good afternoon. A lot of learning I had today. My question, and this might be for Trevor, as a part of the Tucson 2030 district. I am on the board of the Citizens Advisory Committee for the RTA, and we're in the process of looking towards the next generation of the RTA. If you're not familiar with it, a lot of across Pima County, a lot of sustainable building going on as far as our roadways and so on, but we're also talking about some environmentally clean modes of transportation. And my question is there some kind of a liaison between U of A and either PAG or the RTA where we can talk about what we can do on campus to eliminate the auto completely? I mean, we've got the streetcar going through, but what more can we do? And is there somebody who is working with us to talk to those ideas as we start building our next RTA project?
Mm-hmm. So that would be Jessica Hirsch-Ballering, who I don't believe is here, but she is the university's alternative transportation modes manager out of parking and transportation. She is working closely with the Tucson 2030 district at this point within their transportation task force to help define the baseline for the district. So what are greenhouse gas emissions from transportation, but also what are the solutions? How do we get to that 50% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions? So if you would like to email me, our emails will be at the end of this, and I can definitely put you into contact with her.
Any questions? Suggestions? There's one behind you. Oh, okay. By the way, make sure that you write down anything on your cards in terms of ideas if you don't mention them today, because we are taking notes, but we also want notes, ideas, and comments on those cards before you leave. So go ahead.
Thank you so much. I'm Jen Kinzer-Trout, and I am the project director for a new collaborative that is just deciding its name. And we're working to bring together educators in the community. And so we're working with a number of the school districts and charter schools, and really working to support teachers in what they're doing. And so I just wanted to comment and say a lot of our comments are focused on recruiting students and marketing what's happening here at the U of A. Teachers, as Colin mentioned, are really struggling to make sure that there's time for science education. And how can UC3 really engage in the schools in the area? And so we're working Tucson Regional, and we're hoping to expand to Southern Arizona soon. And we did a survey of 1,400 teachers, and what they're really looking for is support to grow as a professional and increase their content knowledge. And with that, they're really looking at active student participation and engagement and project-based learning, which fits with what you're all talking about. And so I'd love to talk more and see how we can connect you all to schools and support it that way. But I think it's really exciting. So thank you.
Great. That sounds like a perfect marriage opportunity. So excellent. Yes.
I don't do field research, but I learn a lot of it.
Please introduce yourself.
I'm Paul Blowers from Chemical and Environmental Engineering. I don't do field research, but I know a lot of my colleagues do, and they go out and they take graduate students out. What would it look like if we broadened that and had a pilot program where undergrads could be invited that are not in the discipline perhaps, but they go out and they kind of see what the experts are worried about and what they're doing? That would be a way of leveraging current expertise and getting students who might not have access to nature out into some of these places.
And some mentoring opportunities as well. Excellent idea. Other ideas or suggestions?
Hi, I'm Jonathan Bean from CAPLA. I was really touched by President Robbins' suggestion that Mustafa Ali could come in and talk. And I was thinking about also Diana Liverman's comment about how we, on the basis of her comment, how we might start connecting up some of our interests and contributions to our local communities with challenges that exist elsewhere in the world. And I was thinking that one way to do this might be, and the process for this I think might be complicated or fraught, but to identify a number of people that could be brought to the university. Mary Robinson is one idea.
She's been here, but yes.
But put those people into conversation with academics in different fields, and then also with community partners to sort of figure out how we can knit those ideas and projects together so that we can teach well in our classrooms and deliver this new generation of citizens that are equipped and ready to deal with climate change and the climate crisis, that we can help our community partners actually leverage what they're doing and make those projects models for challenges elsewhere in the world, and also make sure that we can contribute on that international level of research that we're really expected to do. I think that is a really important thing not to lose track of in this focus on community engagement.
Great. So you're talking about essentially popcorn on steroids, but you're saying we need to have a sort of speakers bureau with workshops and ways of embellishing people's capacity here beyond sort of what's on campus, bringing more people here to have more conversations with students. Is that what you're saying?
I think finding a way to strengthen and reinforce the ties between what's going on in the international scholarly community, what's going on in sort of the international climate crisis, climate change scene, sort of the popular culture level, where our students might be getting some of those ideas, and then helping when we do engage at the community level, helping us find a pathway for those results to get out both in the international scholarly literature and also out into broader circulation.
Right. Well, there are programs that are doing very similar things to what you're talking about now, including various programs within the Institute of the Environment. But I think what you're talking about is a much more strategic, long-term outcomes focused way of doing that kind of work. Great. Yes.
Sorry, this was first.
Oh, sorry.
So sorry.
I didn't see you.
Sorry. Thank you. It's not so much of a question, but more of a shameless plug, because I would kick myself if I didn't bring it up.
You're plugging yourself. Who are you?
Oh, I'm Danielle Hargett. I'm a marketing specialist at the College of Education. And I host Green Drinks Tucson, and there are Green Drinks meetings all over the country. But in case you're not familiar, it's basically a casual happy hour for people interested in sustainability to get together. And I'm hosting it tonight at Borderlands from 5 to 7. And basically people throughout the community come together and talk. I mean, we have people from Tucson 2030 District. We have people from National Parks Conservation Association, all sorts of people. So if you're interested, and we host it every month, so if you can't make it tonight, just thought I'd bring it up.
So can we add everyone who signed up for this event to your list? Okay, well, you're in unless you opt out. Yes.
Vivian Carmichael, Assistant Vice President for Foundation Relations, and I just wanted to build on the comment on bringing people in. A lot of times foundations have program officers, program directors who are experts in the field, and if we could bring them in for conversations and get them introduced, we could get more funding for the work that we're doing. A lot of times the community angle is a little bit more problematic for the really big foundations that fund sustainability, conservation in a big way. They want something that's going to have a national or an international impact as opposed to just affect Southern Arizona. But still, there are definitely foundations that would love to come, would love to join in on a panel or speak at a conference or workshop.
So we'd love to work with you on who those people are and what kinds of topics we might be able to invite them to be part of. So that sounds like a great path forward. So let's connect. Yes. Or, sorry, I think I'm being mean to the left side of the room, so we'll come back.
Adriana Zúñiga from CAPLA and the Ural Center. I think we have also a big opportunity to be sustainable in terms of waste and waste management. In campus, we have the ability to be like a microcosm, and we can just simply ban plastic, single-use plastic, the use of water bottles, follow the example of other cities that have done that. I think it's only a matter of political will. And some people might get hurt, but it'll attract students, certainly.
I bet Trevor has something to say about that.
Yeah, I do. So that's something the Office of Sustainability is working on at this very moment. So University of Arizona Compost Cats, have you heard of the program? Does anyone want? I'll give a quick overview. It is the university's essentially student-run, student-operated composting program that recently transitioned into the Office of Sustainability from the Cal's Cooperative Extension. So I've been leading that program all semester, working to get it in a place where we can grow to do exactly that. Right now, they're only taking in about 2,500 tons of compostables a year from about 70 different businesses throughout the city of Tucson. And so we're facilitating a transition from our current site to a new site so we can actually do that with the proper equipment. We're working with the foundation and Vivian and some others as well to help make that happen, to do exactly that. And within that, the Office of Sustainability will also be working on a very comprehensive sustainability action plan, working with facilities management and all of these different stakeholders from unions to others to really take a comprehensive look at what waste means to the university and how we meet waste goals.
And how are we dealing with the community at large? Are we starting to get people to ban plastic X, Y, and Z, or?
That will be difficult. Within that, part of what we want to do with Compost Cats is to grow what we do with compost throughout the city of Tucson. The Tucson 2030 district, there have been discussions around waste, but we're really focused on trying to meet those three categories of energy, water, and carbon from transportation. But waste is certainly something that we can incorporate. What Gina is doing with Thrive is another fantastic area in which we can integrate more waste diversion, waste reduction initiatives.
Anna.
Hi, I'm Anna Spitz of the Agnes Nelms-Howery Program in Environment and Social Justice. And I want to compliment everybody on all the work they're doing. It's great. But one of the concerns we have is when the community enters into the conversation. We talk about all these great projects and how we can get out into the community and take them our expertise. And we just don't want to lose sight of the fact that there is tremendous expertise out in the community. And our model has always been to have the community in the conversation right away,
Sure.
which isn't going on in this room.
That's right.
And in addition to the general community, the social justice component, I don't think is in this room. And that's something I think to keep in mind from the very beginning of what we do and how we work at the university and how we work with the community. And so we'd love to talk to more about this with everyone in the room and with regards to the UC3 initiative. But compliments to everything that is going on.
So you're absolutely right, Anna. That is how it is today. But I will tell you that this is actually done on purpose. And one of the reasons we've started this way is that we as a campus have not actually come together around this topic in a meaningful way yet. And it needs to happen. And so for us to have at least an event where it is focused on campus ideas, I think is empowering and important for the president and so forth, part of the rationale. But we do have this broader strategy where we are going to the community and asking for their input, and we'd be happy to work with you on how to expand the social justice components of it. I think there certainly is a smattering of social justice in some of the things you heard, but probably not enough. And we're all over whatever ideas you'd like to bring. So
yeah, so that would be great.
Okay.
Individually, we'd love to talk to anybody too.
Great.
We have
Thank
funding.
you. Nancy, we noticed. Thank you, Anna. Oh, sorry.
Sure, yeah, so obviously meeting the campus and community climate goals require lots of things. I'm sure one of the big slices of the pie on campus is HVAC. I know in my building, Stewart Observatory, I'm sure many of us in our homes have things like Nest thermostats and nice things. It's obviously much worse than that on campus. There are sort of set and forget systems that control multiple rooms. So buildings are often over air conditioned and heated 24 hours a day. This has to be a huge energy loss for the campus. Realize new construction is a big thing, but I hope a lot can be done on the, you know, these sorts of modifications to old buildings.
Yeah, I'll follow that up by saying facilities management is working on a very comprehensive energy management plan that does address those things. And these are conversations that we're having with people like Lisa Rolney and Bob Smith in business affairs to figure out how we address those challenges because they do have a very significant impact on what we're moving towards as a university and trying to meet these energy reduction goals and trying to be more sustainable as a university as a whole.
Great. Nancy?
Good afternoon, and thank you for all the work that went into this program and for being part of UC3. I think it's really exciting. And I'm wondering, I'm hoping if the university as part of this role could be some kind of a grand coordinator of all the efforts that are going on within the community. So not just at the university, but like hearing all these popcorn talks were very exciting. And if I think we brought in the community, they could do a similarly exciting talks. And yet it's very hard to get all that information in one place so we can see where the community really is going. Because right now it seems like there's a lot of people and we've all got our oars in the water and we're all pulling as hard as we can. A lot of us are getting really exhausted and maybe we're not. We're just spinning in circles. And so, you know, it'd be really nice if the university could take that role of coordinating these efforts, or at least showing what these efforts are and maybe tracking these efforts and then plugging students into these efforts, or organizations, schools, faith-based groups, you know, neighborhoods, you know. So do you see the university as being kind of taking that umbrella role? That's really my main question.
Well, clearly it's a question of investment in that kind of capacity. I don't know, Raina, if that's something that's come up in any of the conversations that you've had about building up IE, or you're getting a microphone here. Yeah.
It definitely has been part of the discussion, and it is actually one of the positions that I pitched to the president this morning. So.
Great. Yeah, what did he say?
He actually is very enthusiastic about environment, and I think he wants to invest. But I've also heard that he has a team around him that brings him down to earth sometimes. And so they're going to get back to us in a few days to talk to us about what kind of investment they can make right away.
Down to earth, you know. Yeah, okay. Next. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm Peter Dorline, Assistant Vice President of Planning, Design, and Construction and Campus Architect, and I had a couple accolades I wanted to mention and also a comment. I want to thank you for this event. This is really kind of a cool mix of subjects and topics to come together on sustainability. I'd also like to mention a couple of the accomplishments, or emphasize a couple of the accomplishments that were talked about earlier as being maybe even more significant from certain perspectives. You know, the president's climate commitment, there are a lot of people in the room, you know, Trevor and Ben and others that helped the university to proceed down this road of signing on to the president's climate commitment, which was a pretty big deal back in the day. And now we're actually sort of walking the walk with that. The 2030 district, you know, I don't think any of us thought that we would be signatories on the 2030 district when we started going to those meetings, because it's pretty unheard of that the university and the county and the city would all agree to almost anything. And so it was really refreshing that the group of people that worked on that got that try, that those three big agencies to work together. The UC3 is another milestone that a few years ago we would not have predicted. And the Scope 2 emissions that Trevor talked about, actually, we would be the first large university in the country to do that. I mean, ahead of ASU, we know their hallmark is sustainability, and we're really close to accomplishing that. So obviously there are many examples of great education and research on campus, and we have IE and we have CAPLA, we have Tree Ring, there's just too many to name that all have an active role in not only research and education, but also in shaping behavior. Other parts of shaping behavior that the campus does are we build things, and a lot of the folks in my unit are responsible for that. And sometimes we learn what not to build, or we learn to build something smaller. But we also operate and maintain things, and there are folks here from facilities management, and they work hard on trying to do that with limited resources. And everything that we're doing in those areas also models behavior to not just our students, but to the community. And some of these areas do fall into a gap, either because there's not enough resources, or people don't believe that that much resource should be put toward those kind of air conditioning systems. Or I also sit on the board of the Campus Arboretum. Occurs to me that's like a big gap area too. We're supposed to model sustainable landscapes in an urban environment in this region, and we do that some places on campus, but not a lot of places. So because there's a belief that that's what people want to see, is a lot of flowers and grass, and they like those shots during the football game, that see across the country. So if we're going to model the right behavior, I mean, it's important. Whatever we do is really us. It's more than the words, it's our actions. And so I just wanted to emphasize that as a comment, that there's a lot of areas where we do stuff and people are watching.
Great. And all we need to do is a better job telling our story, because I'm guessing most people in this room didn't know most of those things before they came in here. So we all need to be building from where we are to where we can be and telling the story better. So who else has something? Go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm fairly new to University of Arizona, but I did work for almost a decade at the University of Kansas.
And your name is? My
name is Eileen,
okay.
And I am currently with Tech Launch Arizona. What I did at the University of Kansas is I ran their recycling program, and I worked in facility services for a while, so I know from that side all of the efforts to green the campus, to do more environmental things. One thing I ran into there, and I'm taking notes on here, is we have, the 50,000 foot, everything is cool and green. We have this group here. How do we say to the English department, as, hang on, I forgot his name. Steve Moore was talking about, we all fit into the strategic plan. How do we say, English department, this is what you can do to forward this message? French department, math department, how do we get that buy-in? Because, yeah, we're all here and we can go back to our jobs, and it's, the ripple effect. This is great. We're all pumped about this, but how do we get everybody involved? Is there something going to be put in place for that, where I can say, oh, you can go to this website and get these ideas if you have a question on how your English class can do this, or something like that?
Right. That's a great suggestion in terms of trying to help people see how they connect, because I don't think it's that obvious to everyone. And probably any one of us seeing Steve Moore's presentation today would have drawn red circles around everything else in all of those columns. I mean, that's all I was thinking was, what, you're not circling all those other things? Because obviously environment and climate are connected to literally everything. It's only a question of helping people see that. And how can we do, what's an innovative, efficient way of making that happen, given that everybody is completely overcommitted already? Like, if you have ideas, a website isn't enough. I mean, it clearly is a lot of hand-holding, and so we may need to have like a hand-holding club where we sign up to go help people see those connections. But it's a great point. Yes.
Just speak up for the English department.
Yes. I'll also add on to that the Office of Sustainability has thought about these things and is looking towards them. Timeline is nebulous, but we are looking at integrating and implementing Green Office and Green Lab programming for the university that is both intentional in our outreach, so more than just a website that you can go to, but also a website where people who are interested, who we haven't thought to reach or haven't thought or had the time to reach out to, can go to this website and figure out, what do you do with broken glassware rather than throw it away? How can we recycle batteries? How can we do things better and in a more holistic way? Beyond that, we're also looking at LEED EBOM, which is existing buildings and operational maintenance, probably several years down the line, but really much more integrated approach and deals much more with these behavioral aspects of building occupants, which is really what determines how well a building actually operates. So those are things that we're thinking towards. Just gotta give us a few years to get there.
And a little money, perhaps.
And a little money.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pickrell from mathematics. Something we can all do with is to walk, bicycle, and so on, rather than drive a car. What I'd like to ask is, how can bicyclists and pedestrians actually have a voice in the master plan for the campus?
Seems like a pointed direction at Peter.
So the master plan, is just launching. There's a steering committee that meets actually tomorrow, the first official meeting on the master plan update, and there are many cross-cutting concepts that'll be part of the master plan. Certainly, as I mentioned earlier, sustainability will be one of those cross-cutting goals. And the number of focus groups has not been fully resolved yet. The steering committee is helping to determine that. But there are representatives from, from parking and transportation that oversee alternative modes that'll be part of those groups, and there are other groups that'll just be members of the community. And so you don't have to be somebody with a title at the university to get on a focus group. You can be a member of the community and have a voice and have an impact and have a response to questions or concerns. So that is integral in the process. It's not all fully developed yet until the steering committee kind of helps do that. But in the coming weeks, that'll become more and more transparent, obvious, and people will have an option to say stuff about, hey, why isn't there a focus group on this issue? We think this is a core issue. So do keep an eye on that and please speak up. Ben.
Do you have a list of the people that are on the steering committee so that if those of us that wanted to voice ourselves and influence the steering committee contact them?
Yeah, that's a good. So Ben's saying if there were a published list of the steering committee, there's two actual main driving committees, a steering committee and more of an operations committee. And I think that's a good idea that we'll have those names on the website so that you have a contact that if you want to contact someone on that, you can do that. You can always contact me too in planning, design, and construction.
So one of the things I have not heard yet is the role of media in how we achieve these missions. We have Arizona Public Media on campus, and they seem like they would be a really good partner to move things forward, to help spread the word of what we're doing here, how to engage students. That's just my comment.
Great point. And who are you?
My name is Neha Gupta. I'm a PhD student here.
She's really smart too.
Within that, I will mention the Office of Sustainability as of last July is a part of Business Affairs, Division of Business Affairs. Another one of the units within Business Affairs is AZPM, and so we have that close connection, and thank you for bringing that up because I can now have a conversation with I forget his exact title, but Director for AZPM.
Great. Yes. Colin.
So I'm going to sound kind of silly saying this as an educator, but you talked a little bit about the hand-holding to help people get to the right place on some of these things. Well, unfortunately, to really do what we need to do in the amount of time we have, at least for the adults on campus, hand-holding is not going to happen fast enough. People are just too set in their procedures and their ways. And so we had another commenter talk about mandating certain things. And I think that that's an approach that the university needs to consider with things like sustainable purchasing, student unions and food service and those kinds of things. I have a friend who's a facilities manager at NAU. They have zero waste unions. They have contracted with Starbucks to get rid of single-use plastics. So those things can happen, and there's a model for it in our state. It's just a question of, as we heard, you have to kind of have that political chutzpah to say we're gonna mandate this for our campus and train people on why that's the case. But it's taking a harder approach. And obviously, as a member of the College of Education, I want education to happen. But at the same time, there are things that have to happen really quickly.
I think we need a whole range of paths forward, and obviously some of them can be UC3 paths, some of them can be sustainability program paths, some can be part of the strategic plan. It's really just a question of what is a path forward that prioritizes the things that can get us there the most quickly. And your point's really well taken. I mean, Jim, how many universities are in second nature? Is it 670? Over 600 universities are in second nature and they've all signed the president's climate commitment. Is that right? So we are one of 600 universities trying to do similar things. So honestly, we are not at the top of the line in terms of figuring all this out. And there are many models out there. Yes, sir. Let's give this guy a microphone.
Just to add to that,
we
are one of Jim Beiser. We are one of 600 that in the broader community, but UC3 has brought us in as one of 19. These are all Research One universities who are committed to accelerating and doing more because of our capacity. Top secret, but Michigan will be the 20th.
At least we beat Michigan in order, even though they have PEC.
I'll also add on to Colin's comment that the Office of Sustainability has had conversations with our contracting, who we do RFPs with and all that fun stuff. The 3 state universities are moving towards kind of one sort of layout for when we do a request for proposals or qualifications, whatever it may be. And a part of that is integrating sustainability into everything and integrating both sustainability and climate change language, but also evaluation criteria within that.
Is this on?
Yeah.
So Ellen McMahon, I just wanted to say that all of these problems are human problems. I mean, it's about us as a species, and we're the species we're trying to save also. So everybody in this room is on board, and knows that it's a critical issue that we need to move forward on. But there are so many people that really don't see the problem, and they're so set in their ways. So I think to marshal all the expertise from all our disciplines, psychology, neuroscience, art, all the ways that people change, that their perspectives change on things and how their attitude, it's an attitude problem, basically.
Yep. Sorry.
Hi, my name is Lori Clark. I'm in the College of Engineering staff, and I'm also an architect. And I think that there are a lot of staff on campus, and what I notice is that there's not much awareness about sustainability. And I was just thinking about engaging deans, because each department manages a lot of buildings, and buildings are a big problem in terms of climate change. And I know that from the staff perspective, that it comes down from the dean level. So for staff to feel empowered, the dean needs to be on board. So I think engaging departments in the conversation would be good.
Yeah, and I think there is a big trick to how do we get both the bottom up and the top down action happening and meeting in a reasonable way, and just getting people's attention. Now, clearly having the president here got a lot of people's attention. We need to make sure he stays with us as we move through this process, because if he's there, I think the others will be there too. Carrie?
Yeah, so the part of the project, the Recharge the Rain project that I didn't get to talk about was the 16 teachers that we worked with over the last 2.5 years. They took about over 70 hours of professional development, and it covered not only the engineering design process, but climate science. And one of the things that we really got traction around was the Project Drawdown program, and especially in conjunction with food waste. So I had a question for you, Trevor, whether the Compost Cats is looking at, the offset of carbon and the 40 to 50% of food that is wasted in the United States and some of those things. Let me just say one more thing. So a big part of the project is the professional development for the teachers. And I just wanted to say that because we have some interest in that, and I didn't get to say that in the talk.
Just invited the new director of Project Drawdown to come this year.
Yay, Diana.
We have Catherine. We're going to get Jonathan Foley too.
So to answer that question, Compost Cats is looking at that. So there's an EPA hierarchy of food waste. The first place food should go is to humans. If it's still edible, it should go to people who can use it and need it, whether that's via processing or giving food that is still fresh to whoever may need it. The second tier is animals, and any animals that can use that for feed, great. The third tier is industrial processes, so making biofuels, something like that. The fourth, and I think that's four, the second to last tier is composting, and then the last is landfill. So Compost Cats is very aware that we're very far down on that food chain. One of the things that we are currently working on is in partnership with the Fresh Produce Association of the Americas, the Community Food Bank of Southern Arizona, and a variety of other partners down in Rio Rico and Nogales. So Nogales is the second largest inland food port in the United States behind McAllen, Texas. A massive quantity of food goes through that port every year. And despite the fact that the produce industry is very good at doing what they do, some of that food inevitably ends up in the Rio Rico landfill for whatever reason it may be. So what we're trying to do is open a second operation down there that enables the Community Food Bank of Southern Arizona to do a repack redistribution of food that they couldn't normally take because of the quality, and then that enables them, with a partnership with Compost Cats, to take things they couldn't otherwise take the stuff that is not for human consumption, compost it, or get it out to another avenue. So we're very much looking at that down there, and it's something that we hope to start looking at a little bit more holistically here in Tucson as well.
I'm a little hesitant to bring this up because I'm really thankful that you fed us. That's really awesome. I didn't expect that, and I'm sure maybe it's a white elephant in the room, but I'm just wondering if we can avoid using plastic plates and cutlery at future meetings, and maybe take advantage of Compost Cats and use compostable plates.
Abundantly aware of that. Sorry everyone. Unfortunately, because Compost Cats is currently transitioning, there's nobody in the city of Tucson to take that. So this is the option we went with. That being said, as Compost Cats transitions, as we get the ability to bring in more compostables again, that is something that, because Compost Cats is now a part of the Office of Sustainability, that we'll be pushing at more events and hope to have some ways to subsidize the additional cost of those compostable products at events that it makes sense to do that for, like here and potentially athletics events and others. But thank you for bringing that up.
Ben, I think Ben, oh.
Wow.
I was just thinking, Trevor, wouldn't it be great to maybe, if we're all engaged in this, to encourage us all to bring reusable gear instead? That could be really cool. We could
Also
all be
a good option.
dedicated to that. So I'm Deanna. For those of you who don't know me, I work with the Cooper Center, which is Colin over there, who presented on environmental learning in the next generation. I'm the project manager for the Cooper Campus Outreach Team, and we've been working through the College of Education to implement the programs Colin mentioned through the pilot project that we received funding for through the UA Green Fund grant. Now, as a graduate student, I've been pleased to be to have that supervisory role over 3 undergraduate students in diving into the different aspects of this campus and building partnerships and finding people who are passionate about sustainability, as well as those who are less inclined but willing to try. And it's been really interesting to see what doors we've been able to open and what people have been ready for. We've learned that those that are the most ready for new ideas are those who are taking these steps and trying, but just need someone to stand behind them, someone to support them and guide them in that direction. And so and I've been taking notes avidly from all of your amazing educational and student-oriented suggestions, and maybe there's something that we can help with for next year in developing more educational components for students as well as faculty, and getting people out to the Cooper Center and having them connect with nature and developing a deeper caring for that. So thank you for all of your genuine concerns and the new ideas I have. My main thought here is that it's been said that knowledge of a place comes not from one adventure, but from from experience over time. And there's a lot of experience here in this room that is really super valid and super, there's a lot of cohesion that could happen, lots of connections that can be built. And so I hope you don't forget it. And I heard that there's a list somewhere with all the emails that we have. So that would be great to connect us all. I think that'd be fantastic. So whoever's got that. Okay.
Working on it.
All right, awesome. And then the other thing is we recently started a miniature Dodge the Dumpster with Greek Life, and they haven't been mentioned yet here. They are a super large portion of this campus, very hard to touch with in the realm of sustainability, but we've been able to get 5 of the 13 sororities to participate in donations at year's end. And our experience with the house moms and the directors of those 5 houses has been really receptive, and about 3 out of the 5 have been super excited about doing other sustainability work with us. And this is a really good foot in the door to that world, but we do need to connect with them on a larger level. We need to get with them at the level of maybe president, talking with president of their Panhellenic and the other organizations that lead them and connect them to other Greek life across the universities. And engaging them would be a great step in a direction, helping our campus increase our sustainable community and developing just a more interesting skill set. And we have the interest, we have a foot in the door, and we're going to call on some of you, we hope, to engage in that kind of a conversation. So if anyone has any thoughts or ideas, we'd love to hear.
Great, thank you. Ben.
So I wanted to, Ben Champion, I wanted to put School of Geography. I wanted to put a plug in for measurement and for evaluation in all of this. And I think it's really remarkable the degree to which initiatives are kind of spiraling at this point. It's as someone who's been involved in this for quite a while, it's kind of bewildering and awesome to behold. But I'd also like to make sure that we are engaging in evidence-based work and making sure that we know that the changes we're initiating actually do have the impacts. So we have done assessments. It hasn't been mentioned yet, but the ASHE STARS report is good. It's at least the only comprehensive sustainability assessment framework I'm aware of for universities. And we've done that evaluation twice. The data is publicly available on ASHE STARS website. So a lot of the categories that have been mentioned have data that have been gathered and reported as good place for baseline data to evaluate our progress over time. And on the point of food waste, the university's greenhouse gas inventory, the 2015 version of it, included compost cats data in the inventory. And so you can see the scale of impact of composting within the broader waste carbon footprint for the university in that report. Unfortunately, it's very low, very small, but it was based upon original research that Paul Blowers led with a team of students doing comprehensive life cycle assessment. We didn't just take a standard calculator from off a website. We did original life cycle analysis research. And I think, you know, that's an example of how we have an opportunity not just to push from our bases of knowledge about solutions, but also use our capacities as scientists and scholars to study at the same time as we're trying to implement. And I think that's important in terms of buttressing science in society as well. And there's not just science too. I of course appreciate the artistic expression and the culture change aspects are extremely important as well. But evidence-based work is important.
So, any other last questions? One more. Where? Yes, no? Somebody? No? Okay. So, first, thank you for being here, and it's especially to those of you who stayed till the bitter end. We really appreciate it. I actually wanted to thank one more person, which is Jim Beiser. We would actually not be having this conversation if he had not sort of put us in a place where the university joined the UC3 conversation. And so, Jim, thank you for what you've done. You know, Jim has actually been a leader in the sustainability field in multiple places, including at ASU, and has recently been the chairman of the board of the National Council on Science and the Environment, and is now the chairman of the board for Second Nature. Made actually a lot of the arrangements that made it possible for this university to join UC3. And you heard what the president said. Going to that meeting was transformational for him. And so I hope that the fact that he stayed through he was not actually scheduled to stay here through the popcorn talks, and he did. So I think, you know, we have some opportunity now. We've got his attention and we need to move quickly. We want to know which of the ideas you heard about today are the ones you're most excited about. So please write that on your card. And if you didn't get a card, there are cards in the back. And any other ideas you might have that you didn't hear about, any other comments, suggestions for the path forward, whatever comes to mind that you haven't had a chance to say. We think we wrote down everything you did say. But we so much appreciate the fact that you're here, and please go and talk to everybody you know about this and get them excited too. And maybe we need an ongoing listserv of people who are interested. So we'd like to keep track of that. And so is it who that should they be? So Trevor, whose email is there, you can just pretend mine's not there. Kidding. You can contact me too. But anyway, please let us know if you've got other ideas or other people who should be on the list or anything like that. We will be getting back to you with a summary of the ideas that came out of this conversation. And I think we'll probably share the slides as well.
Yeah. If you signed up to be here, if you RSVP'd, we have your email. If you have responded to previous communications from President Robbins, we have your email. So please don't inundate me if you've already responded to this. But if there's anyone new, if you happen to hear about this through the dirt or any other channel and you didn't fill out an RSVP, please do send us your email so we can keep you in the loop. We'll send you the slides from today. We are also recording this. So for those that are interested, let me know, because I'm sure it's a big file and I don't want to send it to everyone, but we'll send this out.
Go on a link or something? Yeah.
We're going to put it on the IE website. We'll figure out how to do that. And then we'll also be sending out a written summary to everyone in attendance today, as well as to President Robbins, Steve Moore, John Dudas, who again wasn't able to be here today, our executive liaison. And this all feeds into a report to UC3's governing body, Second Nature. And we will be reporting out on some of the progress that we've made at a summit in Vancouver in July.
And thanks one more time to the popcorners. You all were spectacular, and so it did exactly what we hoped for. All right, go forth and sustain. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.